Welcome to the Simply Mindful Wellness Podcast. Join your host, Tracy, as she takes a deeper look into nourishing your body, mind, and soul. Because being well creates the freedom to live life the way you want.
So, hello and welcome to the Simply Mindful Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Richardson, therapist, wellness practitioner, educator, and author, helping people to remove those blocks to healing so that they can improve their wellness and feel the best. Welcome to the watchers and the listeners. Today, I'm joined by Angie Simmons, and we're going to be talking about mental health. And as we know, mental health is a huge area that impacts all of us in so many ways. Thankfully, the recent years, the conversation's been opened up and it's being talked about, but it doesn't mean that's the end of the story. So today, we're going to be talking with Angie. And Angie, if you've had a pretty interesting journey yourself into personal development and mental health. So please, can you introduce yourself and tell us, the watchers and the listeners, all about you?
Hi, lovely. Thank you very much. I don't know what just happened, but my screen just entirely went down and I was like, oh, and then came back up again. So
we're here now.
But hi to everybody that's listening that doesn't know me. I'm Angie Simmons. I'm a single mom from a mining town called Mansfield. I'm a personal development and wellness mentor. So I help people gain more clarity in their life, more connection between the inner and the outer world, because most people think that it's all inwards when we're struggling, when, to be honest, most of it is outside, and help them improve their growth, their personal growth, and also their mindset. So that's me.
Fantastic. So you mentioned in your bio that you turned your own mental mess into your message. So can you tell us a little bit about how this kind of kick-started you on your journey into the Growth Development Foundation?
So, yeah, thank you, Tracy. I'd never heard of personal development, if I'm honest with you. In 2014, I was, let's put it this way, I wasn't very nice, if I'm honest. I wasn't the most approachable person. I was angry with the world and everybody in it. I was struggling with mental health, and I had done for quite some years. And that all started when my younger brother was killed on the road in a motorbike accident. He's on his way to come and visit me and my husband at the time. And it was me that introduced him to motorbikes. But unfortunately, obviously situations happen. But I blamed myself. I internalized the pain because it was me that introduced him. And then unfortunately for me, other family members followed suit. And this is when I smashed that self-destruct button. I just wanted to be with my brother. And that's it, because we were so close. And because of the way that me and my brother were connected, a lot of people turn around and would say, woo-woo, it's witchcraft, it's this, it's that. It's not, it's called psychic abilities. It's the energy that we all share between the people that we know, like, and trust, and some people we don't. But me and my brother were so connected that I kept getting dreams and they kept coming true. So obviously that's devil worship. Never mind. But then it just all spiraled out of control. And one of the things that I've learned through my path of self-discovery and recovery is what you focus on becomes your reality. So then I was like, well, this has happened, he's going to leave, and blah, 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 blah. Nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm going to go and eat worms somewhere in a corner. Basically, that led to my husband leaving. Now, I don't blame him. Obviously, I did at the time. I was very angry, very upset that, my support had left me in one of the worst times ever. When I needed his support, you see, he was also my brother's best friend. And that's how we met. In time, looking forward, it was, he couldn't cope, I couldn't cope. And we just stopped communicating. We're still very, very good. We're best friends now, thankfully. And more importantly, I'm grateful for that, because it's enabled my daughter to still have those solid foundations around her, even though her parents weren't meant to be together. That's the way I see it now, that we weren't meant to be together. We were meant to be in each other's lives, but maybe not in the way that we both thought. So, yeah, when my husband left, that was it. That was me going out partying every opportunity, spending money like it was going out of fashion. I was working full-time as a kennel manager, and I was dog grooming part-time because of those debts. I was paying Rob probably about £500 a month towards all my debts. So I couldn't see a way out of that situation. The thing was, with me working so hard, I never got to see my daughter. And she, unbeknownst to me, she was a bottom of a class. And she was also, she was struggling mentally herself. So I met a friend actually, who I'd not seen for the best part of 20 years. And that was what I call a sliding doors moment this particular day, because she was a therapist. So I just went with all my problems, as you do. Not seen her for 20 years, but here you go, have all that lot. And she, obviously, I told her that I was struggling mentally, but I'd also told her that I got no pension and I was struggling financially. And she said to me, well, I've got something that might help you. And I was like, oh, really? So I couldn't wait to get in front of her again. And also the thing that I'd mentioned was, I'd got no time. What she actually did do was introduce me to another business. And I was like, are you for real? I've got no time and no money. And she was like, listen, seriously, minimal interest, input into the business. I'd already been a customer. So I loved the product, the service, but I didn't love me. And the pinnacle of it was she gave me a CD. And for anybody out there that is actually listening, and you are probably in the same position that I was in, that you was working full time, you might have something on the side, you might not, but you don't have that belief that you can actually own your own life. She gave me a CD called Making the Shift by Darren Hardy. And this is about becoming an entrepreneur. So you can imagine me. She's given me this CD and asked me to listen to this CD in my, what I called the mushroom van at the time, which was an old poster van that had no heating. And because I'd kitted it out with vet bed, in the summer it rained inside, and in the winter it grew mushrooms for us. So that's why it got called the mushroom van. But I was, as I said, I was very angry at the time. So I was listening to my heavy thrash metal music. And all of a sudden I've got this American chap talking to me, and I was like, what is that? Another sliding doors moment. I did not throw that CD. I promised her I'd listen, and I did. But the difference was I didn't just listen to it on the way home. I listened to it the next day on the way to work, and then I listened to it on the way home as well, which was half an hour, 3/4 of an hour commute. So don't underestimate listening to this stuff while you're driving, because you might not be taking everything in because you're focusing on the road, but these are still listening, and your subconscious is still listening. So I'd listened to this CD for probably about 6 weeks, I think it was. And I noticed one of my things that I noticed when my mental health was really playing up was I get angry, hence angry with the world and everybody in it, no patience, forgetfulness, and my moods just literally kept swinging from up, down, up, down. In fact, one of my friends actually asked me if I'd got bipolar, because that's the way I was. I was on the tablets. Unfortunately, I was drinking as well. Anything to shut this up. And that's because I didn't know any better. So listen to this CD, and I thought, you know what? I can't keep doing this. I can't keep going to work, leaving the house at 6:30 and getting in at 6:30, not seeing my daughter. By the time I put her to bed, bathed her and fed her and sorted the pets out, that was me. I was done. I was watching TV with a glass of wine or maybe a bottle of wine, and that was it. And I'd just sit and binge watch TV, because that's how you solve your problems, apparently. No. So I went into work and I asked my boss if she could give me an extra 2 days off a month. That's all I was asking, because I noticed my mental health was just spiraling out of control again. And she said to me, how's the dog grooming going? Now, I wasn't thinking of me being a business owner. That was credit card money. That's all it was. And I just thought, what? And she says, how's the dog grooming going? And I was like, it's going okay. It's paying my credit card. Well, you need to decide whether it's your dog grooming or whether it's your job. And that's the word she said. And it took me probably about 5 minutes. And I stood there and I went, so I've got to decide whether it's your life and your family's future, or my life and mine and my daughter's future. Because she was basically telling me to quit the dog grooming or the job. So politely, no, it wasn't polite at all, I told her where to put a job. And I drove home going, what have you done? They talk about burning boats. I blew it up. No chance of going home. going back to my job. So there was no plan either. This was like, right, I need to make this work. I need to make this dog grooming work. But what that did do, Tracy, was give me that time back. No longer was I racing around in the morning. I got to take my daughter to school. I got to be there for a sports day. I got to be there for my daughter and support her. But also it enabled me to then do more inner work. I started listening to more CDs. I started reading positive, inspirational books, finding out how a business is set up. How do I do this? How do I become wealthy? How do, there's so much information out there to help us with the how to. But unfortunately, we're not trained that way. So within, I would say probably about 6 to 8 months, I decided to sack the tablets, which I was told not to do, but I knew that the work that I was doing was making me feel better. I wasn't having so many days where I was losing it to emotional turmoil that I'd just sit there and just turn the world off. So yeah, that was the start of it. And it, you know, I didn't know who the personal development would enable me to become. I definitely didn't see what it would enable me to overcome in later years. But seeing the difference in me, seeing the difference in my daughter was just incredible.
What an amazing story. So it's quite a journey that you've had. And I think, touching on a few points that you mentioned there, we're conditioned to be a certain way. So running from one thing to the next, getting that 9 to 5, like we're conditioned to drown our sorrows. We're conditioned that things have to be a certain way. And all it takes sometimes, like your sliding door moments, is that one thing, that one moment to snap you out of it, to get back into yourself, into your reality, and ask a question like, why should I do this? Or, you know, in your case, is it my life or your life, you know, your job or my daughter kind of thing? Oh, wow. So that kind of pulls at the heartstrings a little bit. And I'm sure, like myself included, there's going to be a lot of people that resonate with that story. But this all kind of started with you and your brother, and you mentioned like you were quite in tune kind of psychically. So is this like where your higher consciousness, your intuition kind of comes in, and is this what you bring into the Growth Development Foundation now?
Absolutely I do. Like I said, because one thing I didn't mention was, because of me speaking to my brother or hearing my brother and me telling, I was called a devil worshipper by somebody in my family who I trusted and loved. So you can imagine, on top of all the grief and everything else that I was going through, I shut myself down. I didn't want to be labelled with something apparently that's so nasty, which, to be honest, when I look at it, it was something so beautiful and it was such a gift. But at the time, because it hurt so much, on top of what I was already going through, that was it, shut everything down. I remember my mum teaching me the psychic thing, you know, the energy, the chakras, all that sort of stuff when I was 13. And my mum was a bit, what was going off with you? Why, you know, I've always loved being out in nature. I love camping. And all that stopped. It was like Angie Simmons was switched off, put in a box and put away. And I said earlier about I didn't know what it would enable me to overcome. And that came in February 2018. My daughter hates February, bless her, even though it's her birthday, because my brother died the day after her birthday, and then my mum died just before her birthday. So I'd been told that, you know, mum told us that, you know, her cancer had come back, and we'd got 10 years. We actually got 6 months. So it was very, very sudden, because we expected a lot longer. But in her effects, me clearing a house, anybody that has a council house or knows somebody that's got a council house, you only have 2 weeks to clear it. And my mum was a little bit of a hoarder. No, she wasn't. She had her own museum. Bless her. And one of the things that I found throughout her house was lists, more lists. She just never did them. And one of the other things that I found was her diary. But she got taken into hospital in January, so she never really got to use it. And that was the start of me waking up again and being wide open, because the conversation I had with my mum on her deathbed, I will never forget. I will never, ever forget. And I was just sat there with her diary and I was just thinking of her. And I just thought, I'm going to start writing down. I'm just going to use this diary. I didn't see it as journaling at the time. It was just a connection to my mum. But in this almanac diary, which is a witch's diary because my mum was a white witch, I saw the moons and I thought, ooh, same again. Conscious, asking the universe, what's this moon thing about? Next thing I ended up in a moonology class. And it's, you ask the right questions, you will be shown the answers, but most of us are too busy being a busy ant that we don't actually see our answers being given. So I was like, well, I've asked. And then that was like the little thing for me. It was like, I asked the question and you're showing me. Does this mean I'm open again? Does this, it wasn't as easy as that. I had to do a lot of work on myself, on my spirituality. But I noticed this writing down was starting to help me. All I was doing was writing down a couple of sentences in the morning, a couple of sentences in the evening, and monitoring 3 key actions. That's all I started doing, but I noticed a huge difference. And I'd been told about journaling, but I just thought that was a crock of, I was like, journaling? What is that? Writing down, writing stuff? No. But it did, it started working. And then, like I say, it was just, I could feel myself waking up. It was like I'd been that, what is it you call a caterpillar when they're in their little pupates?
Chrysalis.
That's it. I felt like a chrysalis. And then I just felt like I was being pushed out and my wings just went poof. There's the best way to describe it. So yeah, in Growth Development Foundation, I teach people a lot about the energies. When I said about the connection, the energies of us, the energy of us of other people, and being open, not being that busy ant, to slow down, because most people think that we've got to get on that rat wheel and run. But eventually, you just end up flat on your face.
Mm-hmm.
I was told, when was it, about 6 years ago, slow down. And I was like, slow down? I don't got time to slow down. Because that's who I was. But what I've learned is when you slow down, you start getting faster.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got more clarity. You're not missing what's actually being shown right in front of you.
Absolutely agree with that, definitely. Oh, yeah, so much of what you say resonates with me. I've worked with energies, as you know, so it is all about the interactions of that energy and the biofields and stuff like that. But actually, to explain it to kind of the listeners and the watchers, the way I would do it is, when you walk into a room and you get a really good vibe and it's like the party vibe and you just want to be in there because it's full of those sort of people, or you walk into a room and you just think, oh my God, I've got to leave. It's like the life is draining out of you. That's the energies that are at play in the everyday. And like you say, we're so busy not noticing stuff that we don't often notice when our energies are being drained, or when we're taking on board other people's energies and stuff. Oh, wow. So with your journaling then, or with your writing rather than journaling, because it wasn't journaling at this point, how has this then kind of developed into your thing, if you like, that you put out there into the world and help other people with?
How did it happen? Well, I was, like I say, I started this couple of sentences, monitoring 3 key actions, and then I just thought, I need to write more. So then I got an A4 book, and then I started writing, my questions, a few more questions that were already there. And I went to see my business coach, who was Claire Cahill at the time. And I was talking to her and she says, how's things going? Blah, 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 blah. And I just went, how I've started writing stuff down. And, she went, yeah. I says, I've been looking for a journal. She went, I didn't think you got journaling. I said, I think that's what I'm doing, if I'm honest. But, and I have been doing for a couple of years, but I'm not quite, in fact, no, it wasn't even a couple of years. Mum passed away in January 18. And I met up with Claire, I think it was the end of 18, and my journal came out in 2019. because I was saying to Claire, I said, I've bought so many journals, I've paid 55 quid for this one, 30 quid. None of them are really fitting for me. And I said, and I can't find a year-long undated journal. They've all got dates on them. So then when you've got a missing day, I beat myself up because I'd missed a day. So I wanted something that was undated. So if I did miss a day, I could just carry on. Mm. And she was like, why don't you design one then? Go figure. A simple question. And I was like, me? Design one? And she was like, yeah. Are you not creative? And I'm like, yeah. The only thing, by the way, I left school with was 2 qualifications in art. 2 qualifications in art. Not even English and maths. I got nothing. That's all I wanted to do was paint and draw and design things. So that was that. And this is when I talk to people about what makes your soul sing. Me, creativity. If I'm having one of those days, and we all have them, because we are feeling beings, we're energy beings, we're not robots. So when I'm having one of those days, instead of doing what I did before and go and get a bottle of wine or whatever, I actually get out my colouring books, my drawing books, my drawing pencils, anything just to get creative. And within half an hour, it's gone. So it's about changing your physiology and changing what's going off in here. So yeah, that is how it started. It was just, oh, well, I can't find a journal, and somebody's saying, well, why don't you design your own? I'm like, I can do that? Really? And she was like, you can do anything you want. And I will never forget that sentence. And since then, yeah, poof. I designed the journal, I put it on Amazon. And then I had a lot of people that I knew that were struggling with mental health. And I just said, look, and they'd seen that I was changing. And they were like, what are you doing? The people that were close to me. And I was like, this is what I'm doing. And then I met up with a lady in a networking meeting. Never met her in my life. For some reason, well, no, I know why. You mentioned earlier about going into a room. I went into a room and this woman just looked like, for anybody that doesn't understand energy, I'm sure you remember the ready brick man. That's how I see people. If I know somebody is I need to be with them, they light up like the ready brick man. And this woman was just, wow. And she literally, as soon as she saw me, she came straight for me. And she went, you're the journal lady. And I was like, I am. Yeah. Have you got one? I says, I am. So this was just before lockdown. And she turned around and she says, oh, there's a course in this journal. And I was like, oh, what? A course? One of the other things that makes me my soul sing is training. I used to be a health and safety, food safety trainer for a big company and travelled all over the country. Loved that job. But that was my first ever breakdown because I worked so hard that eventually the rug got pulled. And I said I would never, ever give a company all my heart and soul again. Yeah, it took me a couple of more lessons after that one, but hey. So yeah, she said, what's that for? And what's that for? And blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, the science behind da, 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 da. And she went, you need to be teaching people this. And this is when 𝙤𝙤 was born, so my journal is my mind management toolkit that I've used for over 8 years now. And then the course teaches the science behind all the journals. So when people have completed the course, they've got the journal to continue it. So, yeah.
Awesome. And there is so much neuroscience out there now that we can change things through. There's just the power of thought. When we look at people like Joe Dispenza, for instance, yeah, absolutely love his stuff. For all the things that are out there now, I think there's a lot more people becoming more aware that actually we can create our realities if we want to. I mean, obviously, we're living in constraints of things. We've been there. We've been in these 9-to-5 jobs. We've given heart, body, soul, sweat, blood, tears for other things. And I think it's fantastic now that you're putting all this into you and what you're doing and getting it out there into the world. So I've recently trained as a mental health first aider, more for my own curiosity than anything. But it's about supporting clients and supporting people and just becoming more aware of stuff. So with the stuff that you're doing with 𝙤𝙤 and with your journal, how are you finding, what are your key observations with the clients that come through this, and how is it supporting their mental wellness?
Well, the biggest thing I've noticed, and I was guilty, was that thing we watch, we're programmed through the TV, the radio, all that sort of stuff. And that was a massive light bulb moment for me when I started noticing that. I'd heard it through all the stuff that I was listening to and reading and stuff. And I was like, yeah, why am I watching 5 hours a day of TV? I deserve a break. Do I deserve a break? Yes, maybe, because I've been working hard. But do I deserve to fill my brain full of that? The news, the radio, all the negativity. And that affects us all. I loved how you mentioned Joe Dispenza, because I didn't know why the journal was working. I knew it was working, but I didn't know why. Same question. Why is this working? Next thing I find Joe Dispenza and I went, oh, that's why. Okay. So it's not woo-woo, as people call it, which is unfortunate because there is still a lot of stigma around it. Oh, it's woo-woo, it's witchcraft, blah, blah, blah. The witch trials didn't do it much justice at all, but that was the greed of man and religion in my eyes. But I'm finding it's hard work for people like me and, me and you, trying to share the knowledge with people because they've been programmed for so long to be and be a certain way, have things, you're not allowed to go above your station, be a certain person so you fit in with everybody else. So it is really, really challenging for people like us, but it's also very challenging for the person who really wants to change their lives, because what I'm finding a lot of is obviously, I'm sharing what I've learned, how I've changed my life, stuff that's easy for people to implement, but yet they still keep falling back because then they've got somebody going, I had it myself. My mum, I remember I was listening to Jim Rohn in the CD and my daughter loved him. I remember once, and that's the other thing to share with the audience. Don't dismiss this stuff if you have children. Now, my daughter, when I became self-employed, I'm trying to think this out now. So she was about 7 or 8, I think, something around that age. And I was listening to this stuff in the CD while she was in the car. And one day I turned it off. And she went, Mummy, what are you doing? And I was like, what? She went, can you put Mr. Part-Time Man back on, please? I was like, wow. Remember me telling you about that little girl that was struggling, bottom of her class? She walked out of school with 4 A's and 2 A stars. And she's been able to follow her dream to become an actress and been on the West End twice. And now is getting ready to go to drama school. This is the power of personal development. Don't underestimate it for yourself, but also your children and your family. So when my mum heard me listening to it, she was like, what is this crap? Oh, you're filling your head full of that American nonsense, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you listen to the stuff that you listen to, and I'll listen to the stuff that I want to listen to. And then you need to know about what's going off in the news. I went, no, I don't. You'll tell me. I don't need to be pumping my head full of all that stuff. And I've had it from other people as well that have said, what is that nonsense you're listening to? Now, one of the ladies that said that, same thing as my mom, is now on Majala and loves it and can't get enough of it. So it does work, but it's not easy work. And it has to be implemented every single day, not every now and again, because people don't understand that. Like, for instance, this particular lady, she's 65. It's taken her 65 years to get to where she is. She's not going to sort all that nonsense out in here in 2 years. It takes time, but it needs to be consistent, and you need to be persistent. Like, keep listening and doing the inner work. So yeah, I find it quite challenging, but the rewards are incredible.
Absolutely. So if somebody's listening to this right now, what would you say to them? How could they support themselves right this afternoon? They can go off. What can they do?
Right. First and foremost, turn that negative box off. That is my biggest 110% advice. Turn that negative box off. You will find out what's going on from everybody else. Put it this way, in COVID, I don't like to mention that word because it's been for God knows how long. I didn't even know it was going off.
No. I
went to the shop for, of all things, toilet roll. And I was like, are you selling up? And he went, no. I went, what's, and he went, have you been living under a rock? thankfully, yes, my house was a rock. I wasn't listening to all that negativity. So everybody that was panicking and then becoming ill because there was panicking, because obviously when you start worrying and getting stressed out, your energy levels come down, and then you're more susceptible to illness and stuff. I didn't have any of that. Yes, eventually I did catch it, thanks to one of my daughter's friends who went to her prom. He knew he'd got it, but didn't care. And then me and my daughter ended up, and unfortunately for me, I ended up with long COVID. God, was that horrible. But yeah, it's turn that negative box off and start working on you and get advice of somebody that knows what they're talking about. There is a lot of people out there that say, oh yes, I've got this fangled thing, but they've not been through it. So they don't understand. It's all right reading from a book or doing an exam, but when somebody has actually been there and they've got themselves out of there, listen to them. You know, the one thing that I did really struggle with, and I still do sometimes, I'll put my hands up. I'm not saying I'm 110%, fixed and I'm bouncing Tigger 24/7, because we can't all be like that. It's okay not to be okay. What's not okay is staying down there. But get help. I really struggled because I was taught that if you cry, you're weak. If you ask for help, you're weak. That's not true. Because what I found through my experience, it takes tremendous courage to ask for help and to reach out. It really does. So if you find yourself struggling, reach out and then give yourself a huge pat on the back.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's phenomenal advice, because like you say, I don't know whether it's the British stiff upper lip or, how we're kind of ingrained to be within our culture, but it is like, do not reach out for help. Do not fail, do not do all these things. And actually, I'm a huge believer in failing forward. Fail fast, fail hard, fail early, and then build on that, because it's experience, isn't it? And like you were saying about, once you've lived that experience, you're then in a better position to support other people that are going through that experience, rather than somebody that's just, read a book. So with what you're doing, you've mentioned quite a few things, but what would you say is the biggest misconception about what you deliver to people?
That it's woo-woo. Basically, that's it, because it's woo-woo. But it's not, it's science. And you can't argue science. So yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception, that people think, oh, and I love it when, oh, don't get me wrong, I love The Secret. Because when I heard The Secret, I went, this was what Mum taught me. This is what Mum taught me. Thankfully, she was still alive at the time. And I says, Mum, you remember when you were young and you taught me psychic stuff and all? She went, yeah. I says, listen to this. And she went, that's it, sweetheart. The only thing with that was that I think there was one person that said about sitting there and you think about what you want and it comes to you. It takes work. You can't just sit there. That is woo-woo. Oh, this is what I want. Give it me, universe or God or whoever you believe in. That doesn't work. You have to take the action towards what you want to achieve. So yeah, they're the biggest ones for me.
Awesome. I think, yeah, you like you saying, inspired action, and I'm a big fan of The Secret, but there are definitely parts of that you can't just lock yourself away and expect things to it, because that's not how energy flows. Energy flows by us doing things that, it's like a role then, isn't it? You attract things to you. Okay, so if people are wanting to find out a little bit more about you, where are you hanging out? Where can they find you online?
So there's Angie Simmons on Facebook, although I don't really use my own profile that much anymore. But I'm on Facebook under Growth Development Foundation. I'm also on there on Instagram as Growth Development Foundation, and I'm on LinkedIn as Angie Simmons. But there's also my website, which is www.growthdevelopmentfoundation.co.uk.
Fabulous. And I should put those links into the show notes as well. So the last question I'm going to ask you, and it's what I ask to all my guests, is what does the term mindful wellness mean to you?
Mindful wellness, what does it mean to me? It's about not being that busy, Anne. It's about being present with you, your breath. It's, using all your senses. Me, nature. Give me nature. Get out in nature. We're not designed to live in a box, but we do. We live in a box. We watch a box. We drive a box. We play with a box. Get out, and it's about like I say, not being that busy ant and racing to go to the shops or whatever it's about, being with you. You know, that your whole essence, and thinking about your breathing and feeling the air touch your skin, the grass touch your feet, all that sort of stuff. So that's me, mindful, being there, being with you, wellness, bringing in all the love, because there's enough to go around.
Absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for joining us today, Angie. Thank you to the watchers and the listeners. And we know that there's so much more that we can do to be aware of our mental health, because it not only impacts us and it impacts those around us. And if you'd like to find out more about Angie and the way she works, the links will be in the show notes. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Simply Mindful Wellness podcast. Join us next time for a new episode.